Happy New Year, everyone. I know I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I hope you're having a wonderful week so far. Since it is the new year, I've decided that it is high time to change the oil in this car here. And I figured I'm going to take you along on that journey. So, let's get started. So today we're looking at a Mercedes S500 model year 2004, and it's a little tricky getting the hood open. Took me a while to figure it out, but just for simplicity's sake, when you go in the driver's side door, there's a little switch here. You just want to pull that, and we'll move back outside the car, up to the front, to the bonnet. If you lift it up just a little, there's this tab that pulls out. So we're going to grab that tab and let go when it gets up. And there you have it. Easy enough. For this you'll need a filter cap to take off the oil filter, as well as a new filter, some oil, and a place to store the old oil once you get it out of the car. Now there is a channel on YouTube that does specialize in car maintenance, and I'll put a link in the description below. In his video he uses a drip pan and catches it all through the oil pan on the bottom of the car, but since I have a fancy handy oil pump, I'm actually just going to pull it out that way. So it'll look a little different if you're used to letting the oil drop from the bottom of the car, but it's still pretty straightforward. One other thing to have on hand is something to put your filter in once you take it out. Should have mentioned that earlier, but now you know. One thing I am noticing as I'm taking this apart is that it looks like it has been leaking a little bit, so hopefully this filter change will help it out. As that's draining, another fun discovery I've made is that this is missing a dipstick, so I'm going to have to figure out if there's a way to get a replacement for that in the future. But moving on with instructions, as this is draining, I'll be doing a couple things. Number one, I'll be swapping out the filter, and then I'll be putting in a 0W40 Mobil 1 oil back into it. We'll be putting in about 8 quarts. Whatever car you're working on, just make sure that you check and make sure that you have the right amount of oil, the right filter, and the right type of oil before you start, so that you're not trying to run out to the store while your car is inoperable. Every time I do one thing, I remember another. So another great thing to have is paper towels or some sort of shop towels, which you can get at the auto store, but ordinary paper towels will work fine too. So I found the culprit of the oil leak. So here's my old oil filter, and there's supposed to be an O-ring around this, but there's no O-ring, so that would cause a little bit of leaking. I will say this is my first time changing this car's oil, so it wasn't on me. I think it came to me from the auto dealer like that, but other than that, it's been a great car, so otherwise no complaints. And for this one I got the STP 8481. Don't know if you can see that, it's a little blurry, but any filter in the right size will do. So when it comes to changing the filter, you'll get a box with the filter in it, as well as several O-rings. And what you want to do is find the slots where the O-rings go. Typically there will be O-rings there, not always, as we've found out today, but typically just replace the ones that are there if you have the size in the back, and you can leave the rest. But before you put it on the fixture, you just want to give it a little bit of residual oil. You can even take it from the filter that you pulled out and just sort of smear it around there. When you're changing parts, it's also a great time to clean. If you find that parts are covered in old oil and grime, you can just sort of rub them off with a paper towel. Even ones that you've been using that have the oil on them will work just fine. Once that's in, it should snap into place. You might have heard it on the audio. But that means it should be good. Back in California, I did always use the method of dropping it from the oil pan. But when I came back home, my dad had just bought one of these pumps, and they're super helpful. If you do a lot of oil changes, I'd recommend getting one. At this point, you should have your filter and your O-rings ready on this 2004 S500 class. There's a small one on the front, and then two in the middle, and the big one up top. And again, your filter should snap into place. Should be an audible snap. That way you know it is seated. Now that we have the oil drain, it's time to start filling it back up again. You have a couple options as far as filling it back up with oil. Number one, you could use this filler cap right here. But number two, if you haven't already installed your filter into the car, you could actually fill up the oil right here. Now normally with a measuring stick, it's pretty easy to figure out where that level is of oil that you need to put in, but since I don't have one, I will be figuring it out. I'm going to start off by putting in the full 5-quart jug, and then we'll slowly add the second jug until we get up to about 8 quarts. This again is the Mobile 1, 0 to 40. You can look in your owner's manual or online to find what oil works for your vehicle. Another side note on the oil, when you are removing that foam, make sure to get it all out of the way. It's not good if it ends up in your engine. Alright, there's number one. And here's number two. If you're ever confused on how much oil you're putting in from the container, there are these little hatch marks on the back side of a lot of them that will have liters and quarts, just to help you out. It's probably one of the most delicate parts of changing oil. Alright, since I'm missing that measuring stick, that is about as close as I'm going to get. If you have a measuring stick, obviously you can get a little finer, a little clearer. Just run the car after you've installed your filter, of course, and then after you've run the car, turn it off and pull out the stick, and you can read as long as the oil falls between the two little dots between minimum and maximum, and you're good. In this case though, we're just going to have to do our best. Again, that filter, once it's clicked into place, it'll make an audible click, and you have those O-rings installed. You can come back to the filter and place it in. If you have a torque wrench, I'd recommend using that just so that you don't over tighten. If you do over tighten, there is the possibility that you'll snap those O-rings, so just got to be careful. Again, this is probably the second place where you got to be careful in changing oil, but overall, not too complicated. That's it. Let's start it up, see if we did it right. That'll work for me. Well, that's all the time I have for today. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below, and I'll see you in the next video.